All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to MVP Office Hours. I believe this is our 111th episode. So we are rocking and rolling, and I think here to stay. So fantastic. Hopefully, you can all see my first slide here. I've got a list of events that I've been collecting. I've added some URLs for easy access to register or check out those events. One that is new to our list this month is the Witness Success event that'll be in Chicago, August 11th and 12th. It's a day-and-a-half event post-Midwest Dreaming. So I just recently learned about this event and thought I would share it with everyone in case that is of interest. And you may have also heard about the Salesforce Global Lightning Tour that is new on our list now. So you might want to just go ahead and Google Salesforce Global Lightning Tour, and it will bring up a link to all of the locations and dates so that you can check that out. Normally, I am joined by Jared Kingston and Dale Ziegler, but they are both occupied with some other tasking activities. So you have me flying solo today. So this is Jackie Travieso, running both tech and talk, as I call it. So hopefully you guys can bear with me if I have any issues here. Let's see. There we go. So this call we hold the first and third Friday of every month. It's an open discussion. It's a straight Q&A discussion. We don't really have anything that is canned or any type of formal presentation. One of the things that we do like to mention is that when we're holding these discussions, we like to talk about approach and pointers, resources, and some recommendations. For those of you who might have questions around troubleshooting code, maybe in-depth automation, specific automation, or you're asking for a step-by-step review, most of the time those are best addressed in answers where the entire community can weigh in. You're welcome to go ahead and put those types of questions out on answers, and then drop a link to that post in the SES community in the MVP Office Hours page, and then point us to that, and then we can also chime in as well. But that'll get you a much larger set of input or review for any type of code that might be a little bit in-depth that requires some eyes on it for some recommendations. Today's call is being recorded. We'll post it both on community and in Twitter in case you want to go back and listen to or share. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and put yourselves on mute so we don't have any background noise. Sounds pretty good right now, so I think we're all right. If you have questions, comments that you want to make, go ahead and use the raise hand in the chat so that everyone can get a chance to talk and ask their questions. Please announce yourself so that we know who's speaking. And I'd like to just say that everyone is welcome to share their experiences. This is not just about MVPs sharing their experiences. So if you've run into a situation where you've got some input that somebody else might be able to benefit from, please absolutely share that. And the last thing on our slide here is we've got an MVP Office Hours survey that we would love for participants to just jump in. It's a couple of questions. Just let us know if it is a beneficial community resource for you and what you get out of it, and then any recommendations that you have that would make this time together even of a greater benefit to you. So if you could do that, that would be great. Today's special guest is Jared Miller, and Jared Miller and I go back, gosh, I think it's 10 years, Jared, to be honest with you.
I know.
Yeah.
I just thought of that. It's a long time.
Yeah. So he and I kicked off the Tampa user group, and then he went on to do these even more amazing things where he was one of the original co-hosts for Button Click Admin with Mike Gerhold. He also co-hosts One of These Things, another podcast, which is a great podcast. I find myself laughing often when I listen to the things that y'all talk about. It's also presented at Dreamforce since 2012, so he's a veteran there. And I know that you've also been facilitating some study groups, so there might be some questions that we have around that. Jared, do you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself, and we can kick this off?
Yeah, sure. So I think you did a pretty good job with the introduction. I've been using Salesforce since 2006 and stumbled into using Salesforce. A pretty familiar story, I think. I was doing inside sales and cold calling and appointment setting, and the company I was with decided to implement Salesforce, and we self-implemented, and I just had a knack for it. I liked it. It made sense, and so then I became an admin for a while, for about 3 years till 2010, and then I got into consulting. So I was in the consulting world from 2010 on, and have just always been around, and you know, have thoroughly enjoyed all my community interactions around Salesforce, and have some of the greatest friends that I have from the Salesforce community. So it's unique that we all come together, and it's exciting to talk to everybody. So yeah, and I guess now I'm doing the VP of Service Delivery at 10K Advisors, and we are a very cool company. I think people know others who joined. Becky is part of it as well. But it's founded by Nick Ham, and we help people with Salesforce talent. So the way I talk about it is like it's half staffing, half consulting. So we're kind of in all kinds of worlds and understanding what people need for projects, and just using the expertise that we've built over the past couple of years. So that's what I'm doing now.
Great. Thank you, Jared. We are very happy to have you with us. So with that, let's go ahead and take our first question. And as we talk about different things, I'm going to do my darndest to, if I can flip over here, to capture some resources. That way when we post this, we'll have these resources in here as well. So who's got the first question?
This is Chris Harrell. I would raise my hand, but I'm audio only today.
Okay, Chris, go ahead.
Great, thanks. So we are actually we're in the security field, and we have some really extensive ways that we keep up with our org. But I wanted to make sure that our alignment sits with what the best and brightest are doing in terms of nice, tight orgs and well secure. So just wanted to hear about some trends or things that you like these days in terms of really keeping on top of org security. And I'll take my questions on mute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, that's a good question. Just before you go on mute, are you talking about like internal security to prevent hacking, or making sure your users are who they say they are, that kind of security, or like data security?
We have a pretty good governance in terms of our own users, but we have a lot of third-party products. We've got APIs, and then we have some delegated admins who, for their business areas, do a lot of different things. So all of that sort of tied into the mix makes it a real challenge for us, and one that I think we're succeeding at. It's just important that I always stay on top of it. Does that clarify?
It does. It does. And yeah, that's a great question. I think that's going to become more and more of a concern. In fact, I think there are people who are far more specialized in that than I am. And it's interesting, because if that was a question a couple years ago, it'd probably be a very straightforward answer. But now the security has gotten a lot more complex. So I wish I had some good answers for you. It sounds like between your delegated admins is always a great way to protect your org security. That way most of the people are in control of, or only your admins or developers are in control of that. For APIs, for third-party integrations that you're using, even the AppExchange, well, AppExchange is, of course, a lot of them pass through security checks. So I guess that's a good thing. Not necessarily the security you're worried about. But for those APIs, I'd probably have to do some research on the best way to guide you to make sure that those are secure. And I think Salesforce does have some features for that, and some best practices around that I could probably dig up. But yeah, that's a tough question. And I don't know if I'm the person to answer that, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Jared, to piggyback off of that, when we're talking about security in general, just in case there are others on the line, what we've got the authentication. So, and we've got the dedicated. Oh my gosh, the word is escaping my brain right now.
For logging in.
Yeah, the dedicated protocols for logging in.
Yeah.
I guess API connections is, no, that's not right. What am I trying to say?
Yeah, so there's like right now there's two-factor authentication. There is a whole, and I can't remember what it's called either, but Salesforce does have some security system. Yeah, this is probably the trouble with having a Friday afternoon call. There's a lot of security around how to log in. In fact, it can be profile controlled or user controlled through login ranges, through login times, to make sure that you're doing that. A lot of times that helps with people with companies that have VPN logins. You can use that. But then there's the security here. Let me see if I can Google it really quick, what that's called. And maybe if somebody on the call knows, feel free to chime in.
You're talking about Shield?
Shield, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Shield, yeah. So, anyway, but it's, a lot of those security questions when it comes to it, I have a group of people that I would call and ask and bring into those questions because that is a little out of my pay grade.
Maybe if I could just follow up with a real short question then. I think one of the keys that we have found is a rhythm for organizing it, and I think that's more best practice than tools. So for us, we have a pretty solid change control on profiles and roles and permissions, and maybe you could speak to how, in your consulting practice, how you advise people to stay on top of that in a governance way.
Oh, yeah, okay. A lot of the exercises that we've been going through lately, and in terms of best practices, have been a lot around permission sets. Are you using permission sets right now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. One of the things that we've actually started doing and we've seen a lot of success in is really, obviously, and I think that these best practices have been around a while, but limiting the number of profiles you have and using permission sets to control that. As new features, as new functionality that Salesforce is releasing, and also that you may be developing internally, having those controlled by permission sets becomes very helpful and very easy for governance. Because again, with your permission sets, you can grant them by user. So your permission sets could be functionality based. People who need certain functionality can do it. They could be specific role based. So you can really get that fine-tuned security control based on what people need. So I think one of the best practices would also be trying to convert a lot of that specific functionality or concerns or risks. All of that plays into how you would create your permission sets. It could potentially be more to manage, but then again, you could always start having a role-based permission set where somebody who is inside sales or somebody who's customer support automatically has all this group of functionality in one permission set, and then any additional ones that you want to limit can be added on. To really control that, and again, something else that we've seen successful is, with Salesforce, setting up your own custom objects, your own data tables to store this is the role and this is the permissions that they have. It makes it very easy for developers to go grab it and automatically assign permissions to people as they come aboard, and it gives you one place to sort of manage that roadmap of who needs what and why. Rather than just going through and trying to remember what permission sets to assign to certain people, but using our knowledge of Salesforce to customize that with a custom object that you can go and have different roles or however your company's structured to dictate how they need to be set up. So almost a full onboarding. You could even extend it beyond just permission sets to, do they have their I-9? Do I have a copy of their driver's license? Things like that. So it could potentially be a whole onboarding thing, but anything that can be actionable would be great. So how are you keeping track of your permission sets right now and who gets what?
Well, I'm really interested in the example that you provided, because we do something very similar to that, but we use we're a security company, so there are certain principles that you wouldn't leave that information about the org in the org just for security best practices.
Yep.
So we have that organized in additional systems so that we can cross-reference it. And that for us is, it's a matter of diligence and making sure that the right people are updating the permission set based off of the latest and greatest document, which doesn't live in the org. I love the idea of keeping track of that on a custom object. We've done that for everything from ticketing to support cases, but for this, it would violate how we do security.
Sure.
Because it would be putting the keys to the castle inside the castle.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the more we kind of get into this question, the more impressive that I think your org is becoming, because it sounds like a lot of these best practices you are already implementing and working on. And when it comes to this stuff, the due diligence of who can do what, keeping your documentation up to date and where that's located. These are all things that people struggle with, and it sounds like you've got that pretty nailed down.
Great, thanks. And again, I think for us, it's just part of my role is always staying on top of what's new and fresh. And I didn't, want to monopolize everyone's time today, but I thought if you knew of any good publications, good podcasts, good sites where people are really on top of this, I'd love to hear about it sometime. Thank you.
Yeah. That's something that I should definitely do some research on and find out to see who's really filling that need. But maybe that could be you. Just a thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
We always like to encourage community contributions, so there you go. It looks like Virginia says in the chat here that she knows about Shield. So we could ask her some questions.
Absolutely, yeah. I actually work for an ISV for Salesforce, and we've been working over the last couple of months getting our product ready to be able to support Shield, and so I've gotten to know it pretty well. Shield is actually a larger name for three different components: event management. There is field level auditing, and then there is the platform encryption. The event logging allows you to track. I've actually been pretty amazed at what the event logging will let you track. It's pretty in depth, and Salesforce will keep the data around for a very long time. I think currently the event log is only good for 24 hours in a standard org. The field auditing allows you to keep data for up to, I believe it's from 18 months to 10 years. And again, being able to track that data, and then the platform encryption allows you to do a certain amount of encryption at rest. I think Salesforce is taking a very methodical approach to platform encryption and data at rest. And the way they approach it, but it's actually a pretty nice little package that they've put together to help continue to stress security and help customers have that insight into their orgs.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question? Or while you're thinking of the question that you'd like to ask, Jared, can you give us your insights on Spring 17 and maybe what your favorite features are based on what you've learned about the release? Jared, we can't hear you if you're talking.
Yeah, I was totally on mute. I said the most brilliant thing in the world, and I was on mute.
Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, Salesforce Identity was, I think, the other thing that I was thinking of that I couldn't think of. But yeah, it's funny. I had a conversation about Spring 17 earlier today, and I would have to say that one of my favorite features, and I think it's probably because it's got a little soft spot in my heart, is in Spring 17, you can now pass URL parameters to filter reports. So kind of the old URL hacking that a lot of people did, it's now actually, you can do it in Lightning, and it's Salesforce supported. So that's really cool. It is something where you can, I don't know if people are familiar, but it's in Classic, you can pass report parameters through a URL. So on an account, you can always run a report of all invoices for year to date or all time. So you make one report where you have a filter that is account ID equals blank. And then you can use that link in an account, and you just use a merge field for the account ID. So every account you go on is the automatically filtered report to exactly what you need to. So you get kind of contextual information on a click. That was always very valuable. It saved a lot from page layouts in terms of you're only allowed 2 Visualforce charts or 2 report charts. And this gives you a kind of a neat way to see information, especially when a related list wouldn't do. So you can now do that in Lightning. So that's probably one of my more favorite features. And because it's Lightning, it's just more feature parity that's coming along.
And Jared, is there a I don't know, feature name for this, or just calling it passing URL parameters?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, it is called Filter Reports via URL Parameters in the Lightning Experience.
Filter reports via URL. Say again?
Filter Reports via URL in the Lightning Experience.
Perfect. And I know that is your favorite thing because you taught me that 10 years ago.
I know, and now I'm so excited. It was that's where it's got a little soft spot because it was such, and I forgot who taught me, but yeah, it was such a great little trick to have.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. So with that said, have you read anything or do we know anything yet about passing other URL hacks?
No.
Okay.
Not that I've heard of, and actually I was surprised that this is there and supported.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
What's your second favorite?
Good question. I had it. Let me get there so I can get the feature right. Hold on one second. Oh my gosh, I really scrolled down. Oh, the utility bar?
Yes.
Yeah, hold on one sec. Let me...
While you're doing that, and just a quick raise of hands for everybody who's on the call, how many of you are either, okay, let me pose this as a two-part question. How many of you have already moved to Lightning? Go ahead and raise your hands. Okay, looks like nobody. How many are considering moving to Lightning and doing your due diligence at this point? I've got one. Okay. And then go ahead and put your hand down. And then for the rest of you, do you plan on staying on Classic for, I guess, until the end of the year or into next year? Okay. Looks like that is probably what our callers are planning for this year. So they're going to stay on Classic through the end of the year, which then actually, Jared, that takes us, after you talk about utility bar, let's talk about your thoughts on preparing for or
Lightning.
mentally preparing for how to approach a migration or that transition?
Yeah, you got it. You got it. So the Spring 17 is called Enhance Your Lightning Apps with the Utility Bar. So it's basically a footer that stays in place on a console where you can quickly add actions, you can do Lightning components, you could do almost anything down there, except Visualforce, I think. And that's Visualforce pages. But I think anything Lightning you could do down there. But it's just a cool, quick action bar, which I think also plays into the next thing where the global action menu is getting a little bit better, where you can add more actions to it. So, just making the kind of one-stop, one-screen view pretty much more robust than it has been in the past.
Right.
So, my thoughts on mentally preparing for Lightning. I was lucky enough to have work with a net new customer to Salesforce who only knew Lightning, which was pretty interesting in terms of just some of the customizations and implementation stuff that we went through. It's definitely Lightning presents what I think people should really take advantage of is it presents us the opportunity to reevaluate some of the processes that we've had in place in our orgs or the orgs you've been working with. A lot of the apps beyond Salesforce, but a lot of the consumer apps that people interact with on a day-to-day basis, or consumer websites that people interact with on their day-to-day basis have really taken this one-screen approach pretty seriously, and a lot of people are used to it. It's different for us in Salesforce, but it's sort of how the world is going, where we're not having to wait for page loads. I know in Lightning there's been complaints that it has been slow, and I think I've seen that and maybe have been one of the people complaining about it. But now that Lightning keeps getting better, they're releasing more features. They're releasing features not only for feature parity between Classic, but also releasing new features that will never be on Classic. It gives us a great opportunity to reevaluate our org, how our users interact with the org, the customizations we have, if they're still relevant, if we have new ways to do them. Because I think that this is something that can easily get users excited, especially when you start building some demos and you start showing them what Lightning can do. And it's all about those conversations that you have from there. There's gives and takes to everything, something that we go through every day, even with Classic and new functionality, pros and cons, and doing it this way means this, and doing it this way means X. So these are all conversations that I think a lot of us are used to having or should be having. And it just gives us a new platform to do that. So it's pretty cool. I think it's really becoming very impactful. And a lot of people who were staunch opponents of it are now already on Lightning, moving their users forward, and just as happy as can be doing it. So it's definitely worth it.
Very good. Christy's got a question. Christy, do you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask? Christy Guzman?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Good to hear your voice.
Hello. So you kind of just touched on this a little bit. I'm just curious for thoughts on, and even from a consultant's perspective, what kind of recommendations you make about balancing new features and new projects and new things you want to do, which is kind of continually evolving, versus the looking back toward cleanup and maintenance and evaluating, is this, does a new feature negate this process and cleanup? Because I think, especially inheriting an org, it can always be tough to kind of take the time to look backwards at all the ugly profiles and page layouts and all the things, fields that we have, when the new sexy fun thing is new projects.
Yeah, yeah. So some of the it's almost a bang for your buck is cleaning some of this stuff up, and especially I think you gave a good example of you have maybe a number of profiles that it's just unruly. Having a project and cleaning that up is something that not many people will see or be impacted by because it is all behind the scenes work. However, the maintenance, the things that cleans up moving forward only helps out those new projects. So I think part of it is in the way that you work with your team or your manager or your director or whoever it is on prioritizing that maintenance work versus the new projects. It's something that you'll probably hear a lot, and a lot of technical architects will refer to this, but it's the technical debt. Where you have things that are done in code that maybe Flow can take the process of, or now there's functionality that's standard, so you don't have to have the code to do it. Cleaning up that technical debt is something that sometimes they build into their yearly budget, where 20% of their allocated time will go to cleaning up that technical debt or maintaining old functionality, whereas the other 60% or 80% is for projects, and then maybe the remainder percentages for training for a training budget. So it's really how you break that down and what it looks like. There is, while it's not the cool thing to do, there's a lot of importance around maintaining your org, maintaining that structure, and making sure, especially when it comes to profiles, that it's done. It will save you so much time in the long run. Otherwise, you're revisiting it almost every new project you do. So that's part of what you just have to evaluate and look at. Especially becomes easier too when things that are new functionality are with Lightning, for example, are easier to implement or already implemented, let's say. So, having that, it saves some time on the front end, so you can start working on that maintenance on the back end. When it comes to consulting, when I go into orgs and I see that there is some maintenance to be done, it definitely becomes part of the project plan. It would be remiss of somebody to not take that into account or call that out as a risk or a future project. Because if you see it and you don't do anything about it, it may not be the project you're doing today, but it could be the project you're doing tomorrow, or it could be the project that your client is actually responsible for moving forward because you sort of handed over the keys. So all of that maintenance, just calling out what that looks like, even for new functionality that requires data or usage, it's always good to call that out and understand what that looks like.
Okay, let's go to Virginia. I think you've got a question.
Oh no, sorry. I think
Okay.
I forgot to lower my hand from earlier.
No problem. Not a problem at all. Thank you.
I hate it when that happens.
I know. No problem. Anybody else have questions? Jared, I have a scenario that I've asked a couple people on, so you'll be, I think, my third or fourth person that I've talked to, and I just am looking for consensus and really for somebody to challenge this. But I was working in an org where Pardot was creating tasks left and right to the tune of 1.5 million records, which took us over our storage limit. And of course, when I went through and I eliminated all of these unnecessary tasks, it got us below the limit, and we were within the requirements of the guidelines that Force requires contractually, and everything was good. 3 weeks later, there have been 9,000 other records created, and we know that 9,000 records, when it comes to storage, they're 2 kilobytes per record, so that's not that much. However, the storage totals are showing that we are now 383% over storage.
With those 9,000 records?
With those simple 9,000 records, which makes no sense because the 1.5 million equated to more than 2 gigabytes of data storage. So someone recommended that I request Salesforce to recalculate and rerun those numbers as if what I'm seeing and what we're seeing in our org is not the true representation of what our actual storage usage is. I'm assuming that this recalculation is very similar to our manual standard button when you recalculate sharing rules. There is no recalculation of the storage. We have to actually, we have to submit a case and ask for it. Have you ever come across this type of a scenario, and do you have any thoughts on it?
I have definitely come across the thousands and millions of records causing storage limit issues. I have not come across the resetting of storage before. In fact, I did not know you could even request Salesforce to recalculate. I think most, what they say is most of the records are about 2 kilobytes, but that's sort of just an estimate. Some could be more. I don't necessarily think that your 9,000 are more than 2 kilobytes, or I mean, even if they were 10, that's still, it sounds like it's just crushing your storage. So yeah, I would be actually very interested to know if when you do log that case, if it returns and what the answer is from there.
All right, fantastic. Has anyone on the line ever run into this?
It's almost as if you're asking for your audit to be reconsidered by the IRS.
It's a little scary, right? Okay, well, I just thought I would run that by another group of listeners to see if you guys have run across that, because I just find it very strange.
Yeah, that is interesting. Almost like maybe somewhere in Salesforce your data storage is like cached.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that these are not visibly sitting in the recycle center or the recycle bin. So, yeah. All right. So I'll keep researching it. But thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And it's the activities, standard activities.
Yeah. Well, that's what caused the problem to begin with.
Okay.
And then once I cleaned all of those out, I met the requirements. I was under the 100%. 3 weeks later, we've generated 9,000 records, which has put us into the 3.5 gigabyte total or something like that.
Wow.
Okay, mystery continues then.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have anything that they want to talk about? Are you looking for resources of any kind?
Hey, Jackie, have any of your clients gone to Lightning yet?
One of them said that they accidentally turned it on and then went, whoops, no, and they switched back. So no, nobody is actively using Lightning. I try to pop in whenever possible from an admin to start using it to become comfortable with it. Which, and that actually is important to differentiate, because we as admins or developers have to learn the ropes of how to move around within it, in addition to rolling it out and then teaching people and removing the fear of, hey, your page layouts are different now, but they're better, and you have this other functionality. And I think that's really an important distinction that I don't know that too many people are really talking about. At least I haven't participated in those types of conversations, but I think it's important.
This is Chris. I've just been beefing up my JavaScript and CSS skills in preparation for Lightning migrations.
Nice.
Because it's a lot more than Apex now. And
yeah, it is. In fact, I know that there's more and more projects that I'm a part of and that I hear about are, you have traditional developers, and then it's really bordering on UX and design developers because of the CSS and JavaScript and how front-ended it is now. So
I feel like we're entering a whole new world. We all know how to get around and do things and can visualize it without being in Classic, right? Because we've done it for so long, and now all of a sudden everything is, I'm not going to say everything is different, but so much of it is different. It's different. it's called something different. It functions
Yeah.
a little bit different. You have other choices. So
Yeah, and I think to your point, just to piggyback on your point, Jackie, it's interesting because I think you in reverse of what we've experienced before, I think the change management is, of course, it's part of getting your users on it, but I think your users are more accepting of it. It's the change management of how our admin screens are that also has a lot of resistance because it's just, there's a lot of people who can, without even looking at Salesforce or even being near a computer, tell you exactly where to go to create a workflow rule or a validation rule or just right off the top of your head. And it's not always that way with the new Lightning admin menu either. So
yeah,
lots of change management that we have to go through too.
yeah, exactly. All right, so I'll put it out there once more. Anybody have any topics they want to talk about? And I don't think I said this at the beginning of our call, but this is a safe zone. You're free to ask anything. No judgment, I promise.
So this is an industry roadmap question. I started off, again, this is Chris, I started off talking about security. Anyone have a pulse on the Commerce Cloud and sort of what's going on with capabilities with Salesforce and Commerce Cloud?
That's a good question. I do not.
Do we have any idea if Commerce Cloud would take the place of using like a Shopify, or I'm trying to think of the other one, it starts with a Z, where it connects your e-commerce to Salesforce? Does it bridge that gap now natively?
See, that's what I'm thinking, along the same model of an acquisition like SteelBrick is now pulled into CPQ. One of those pieces would someday be the industry standard for the Salesforce Commerce Cloud. And I just mentioned that because you mentioned it's a safe space, and I'm very curious about the next 18 months with that, because I want to align some skill development and architecture design around whatever that winning third-party platform is.
Yeah, I think if you are a Salesforce customer and engaged with Salesforce for a while, it's probably going to be one of the top choices, if not the top choice. But I don't know I don't even know what that architecture would look like, or other potential integrations for payment gateways, things like that. So that's a really good question. Yeah, or even with Einstein, Einstein coming with how that would impact what a potential Commerce Cloud implementation looks like. Yeah, I mean, that would be really interesting. I wonder who, Jackie, have you ever had like product managers on these? I know it's MVP office hours, but just curious.
The only Salesforce representation we've had recently was the Trailhead team.
Okay. Yeah, it would definitely be interesting to hear what that roadmap looks like. Hopefully assuming there is an 18-month roadmap or a 2-year roadmap or 5-year plan for this.
I can certainly reach out and see if this would be appropriate.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just another call, and maybe it's not even for anybody to organize. Maybe it's just feedback for Salesforce to say, hey, can we maybe do something around this to get more information?
Sure, I've written it down, so we'll look into that. Really good questions, Chris. Thank you very, very much.
That's it. I'm done. No more. Somebody else.
So, we're getting a little nudge from Christy. Christy, you make me laugh. She says that we could talk about Southeast Streaming and Jared's attendance and why the event is great. So what Christy is referring to, Southeast Streaming, is a regional event And at the beginning of our slide deck, we had, and I'll go ahead and flip back to it, we had a list of all of the events that we are made aware of through various social networking and all of that. And we do have Southeast Streaming on there. So it's March 30th. For any of you that are in our region or would love to travel our region, Atlanta is where Southeast Streaming is being held. And it's kind of like a mini Dreamforce, day and a half kind of a thing. And Jared, are you actually presenting?
I am not presenting this year.
Okay. But you know what? We're going to be there. We'd love to meet everybody. Christy, if you'd like to go ahead and open up your mic and talk about Southeast Streaming, go ahead and take a couple minutes to do that. We'd love to hear it.
Oh, I mean, I could talk about it all day long. I just didn't want us to leave early and not mention how exciting it is. No, but I think if, in terms of these kind of questions, to me, how it applies in that sense, of course, getting together with other Salesforce nerds, to me, is always a good time. But we will have a code coverage table for free reviews by the Map Anything development team, who will nerd out about code and answer any questions if you can't read a trigger and kind of what kind of stuff's going on with that. We'll also have Salesforce SEs there, so if you have any questions similar to this and you want the official Salesforce party line answer, we'll have those resources available, in addition, of course, to keynotes and a sponsor area and wonderful community-led sessions. So we're also having a hackathon and trailheadathon if you want to come earn badges with friends. And so anyway, if you are nearby, of course, we'd love to see you in Atlanta, but that's just me pimping the idea of those kind of events, because I think it's really great to get together with other people and have conversations like this about like real talk time about things that are going on in your Salesforce instance. So
absolutely.
There's my plug.
You never know what you're going to uncover when you just sit down and talk to someone about their experiences, your experiences, your questions. And it's how we make Salesforce friends, which you can never have enough friends in any realm of your life. So our Salesforce friends get us through our challenges. So, and the other thing is, there's going to be a cupcake machine at Southeast Streaming, I've heard. So, there's that.
True
Thank
fact.
you, Christy. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. All right, well, we'll do a time check. We've got 10 minutes left scheduled for this call, and I'd love to give you guys an opportunity to pick Jared's brain or anybody else's brain on the call, because this is your time to ask questions. Jared, would you like to leave us with any parting thoughts?
That's a good question. There's been so many good questions today. I think that with Spring 17, just because that is a fresh topic, I think Spring 17 opens up a lot of new use cases and for moving to Lightning. And I think that just from some interactions that I've had with people, that it's probably time that we get over some of the fear that we have of going to Lightning and start embracing it, because it is coming, and it's coming on stronger and stronger each release. So
absolutely. And in case people don't know, they can jump into their dev org or their sandbox org and turn it on and start playing there. And you can run the I can't remember the name of it, but you can run the comparison so that you can see where you might need to put a little bit of effort to making some updates or changes, so that you can build out a plan and how to address things that maybe do not have parity or work a little bit differently. So you've got some pre-work that you can do to kind of get you, I'm not going to use the word excited, but prepared for and maybe relieve a little bit of the anxiety about how do I start, where do I start. And then make sure that you all are going to your local user group meetings, because they should all be talking about the stuff. And if they're not, make the recommendation and see if you can't maybe get some labs going. Our group is going to start a Lightning series, and we're going to try and help people through, 1, getting over the fear, 2, what steps do I take to get started, and then actually start jumping into some exercises so that people can start to get the feel for where things are within Lightning and what happens when you click on them, and what are, obviously too, what are the new features and functionalities that are part of Lightning that are not part of Classic. So, feel free to make those recommendations to your user group leaders, and or start a Salesforce Saturday and start coming together and talking about these kinds of things in a safe environment where you guys can help each other.
Yeah, that's great. That is definitely a great suggestion.
All right, well, with that, let's jump to our April 7th. Guess what? We're going to have a mystery guest, and I don't know who it is yet. So watch Twitter for announcements on who our guest will be, or our panel of guests. Maybe we'll have more than one, and see what kind of topics we're going to tackle. And just because we list topics out there doesn't mean those are the only topics that we're going to discuss. We just like to let people know that we've got someone available who has experience in those specific areas. And if you've got questions or thoughts or concerns about those types of things, they should be able to address them for you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give everybody a couple of minutes back in their Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe, everybody, and we'll see you again on April 7th. Jared, thank you so much for joining us today and supporting MVP Office Hours. We greatly appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me, Jackie. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.